Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Grace Fosdick, and I am co-chair of the IADC Young Professionals Committee. We're excited to kick off a series of professional development events that are brought to you free of charge by all of our sponsors. Today, we'll be discussing developing your personal brand with Jamie and Maisie, who we all know have done an excellent job of that. Big thanks to Liana Carnes of Transocean, who has helped bring this event to you. And with that, I will pass it to Liana.
Thanks, Grace. Thank you, everyone, for coming. My name is Liana Carnes. I work for Transocean, and I'm very happy to be moderating this event. So just a quick bio. Jamie holds the position as Global Sales and Key Account Directors for Industrial Energy and Technology at Baker Hughes. She's the founding partner of Flipping the Barrel and a 12-year commercial and business development professional in the oil and gas sector. She started in the industry with no prior connections, using platforms to market herself and land her first job as a field rep for Smith Bits. Since then, she has built an extensive network of clients that continue to follow her during each transition in her career. Jamie's passion to be an advocate for change in the energy sector started earlier on, when she felt there were not enough women on her teams. She has since been a leader in creating awareness around the positive impact the energy sector has on humanity and the incredible career opportunities opportunities the sector offers. In 2019, she connected with Maisie on Instagram. The two hit it off with an undeniable connection and shared love for the industry. As a joint effort, they decided to start Flipping the Barrel, a women's perspective in oil and gas. The movement behind the podcast is to shine a light on the industry, create a more inclusive workforce, and provide a resource to people who want to pursue or learn more about the oil and gas industry. Jamie, do you want to say hello?
Yeah, no, hello. Thank you so much for having us today. We are very excited and honored to be a part of this panel and just have the opportunity to share the knowledge and experience that we have had in branding development, and really hoping that everybody here can get something out of it. And please ask questions. We want it to be interactive and not just Massiel and I talking, as we all know we can do that, but it would be great to also hear from you as we want to ensure that you get the most out of today. So thank you.
Perfect. So Maisie is also known as the Oilfield Girl by her global online following and is the co-host of Flipping the Barrel podcast. By documenting her non-traditional career on Instagram and YouTube as a fresh chemical engineering graduate from McGill University, the then wireline field engineer quickly rose to virtual stardom, sharing her passion for the industry and encouraging young girls to explore oil and gas careers. Her authenticity and openness about the struggles and challenges of working away from home struck a chord with viewers, and her audience skyrocketed into the thousands, with close to 500,000 views in a short period of time. In 2019, Maisie shed her field engineer career and moved into an office sales role, where she worked on a startup focused on the perforating pump down market. As a joint effort with Jamie, Maisie launched Flipping the Barrel podcast, to show dedicated to shining light on the oil and gas industry. In the short time since its inception, the show has captured the attention of a large global audience and has consistently climbed the charts. I do have to say, I'm a huge fan of your podcast, and I feel like I'm in the presence of celebrities. So thank you both for joining us. Maisie, do you want to share some?
Just want to say thank you again for having both Jamie and I speak today. It's a real pleasure. And yeah, I think let's just get into it. We're excited to be here.
All right. Sounds great. So today's topic is building your personal brand. So how do you define a personal brand, and why do you think it's important?
So I think, personal brand has become this big hot topic in the last few years, especially after the outtake of social media and with the pandemic, and people realizing that, hey, a personal brand is very important for their careers, especially when they couldn't be in person. So truthfully, what a personal brand is, and I think we sometimes make it bigger than what it is just what's your reputation? What is that calling card that people know you by? What are people saying about you when they're describing you, when maybe you're not in the room? Hey, have you met Jamie? She's this, without you necessarily having ever told them that those are that is your core. It's what people know you by, what you stand for, your values, what kind of voice do you have, and what are your core values, and what do you want to do next in your career, or whether they know, they're big into X. And it's you create that. And it's hard to create at the beginning because you're trying to figure out what it is, the voice that you want, what do you want people to know you by, etc. But at the end of the day, it's just personal branding is a combination of skills and values that really make you unique and make you stand out from everybody else.
And
awesome.
To add, your personal brand can also be very aligned with your personality. So people might know you as energetic, talkative, introverted, extroverted. And so all of that plays into your personal brand when it comes to social interaction in person. And then of course you have another aspect, which is your social brand on social media, which you can use your personality to come out on that as well, as you should. But those are two different ways that you can build your personal brand. So you can have an online presence as well as when you show up in person. You really want to match that online presence. And we will get into some of that in some of the questions, I believe, but that's at the end of all of that, what it really is up to is being your authentic self, because you want to be able to be perceived online as you are in person. And I think that is something that, we need to just make sure that we're cognizant of as we start to develop our personal brand.
Great, thanks. So let's get into the next. How has the development of your brand helped you guys in your career?
Huge amount. And I think anyone who does have a good personal brand, online or offline, they will say the same thing. And why is this is a way for you to differentiate yourself. In a company, some of us work in 50,000 person, 100,000 person company, 30,000. Think about it. Everyone's doing a great job. Everyone's working hard. So what are those little things that help you differentiate yourself, that maybe when a job comes up, right, you want to be on that top of the list, maybe because they see you all the time on social media, maybe because they met you once, you had a really great elevator pitch in the elevator or at a networking event, and all of a sudden they're like, I remember this girl, or I remember this person. And so it goes a very long way in your career, because at the end of the day, it's all about networking, and it's about people knowing who you are. And that's what really helps you get ahead in your career. Something that, Jamie and I didn't know early on in our careers. It's put your head down and work really hard. But at the end of the day, personal brand goes a long way.
So before social media, personal branding was really who you were when you're out in the field, who you were in the office, when you were showing up. Because before, looking back at when Massiel and I started 10 years ago, there wasn't this flexible work that there is today. There wasn't a big online presence. Instagram had just started probably when I was in college, when it was really being utilized, and that was 2012, 2011. So those weren't the ways at the time for you to build who you were. And if you look at some of our career progression, our personal brand really was developed as we started working for companies and as we started building who we were inside that company. And really what that ties into is what Massiel was saying, is about working hard. And it's not just like showing up and putting your head down, but it's also like being interactive, meeting people, going up and talking to whoever is in the office, going up and, now direct chatting, pinging, introducing yourself. You want people to know who you are, and you want it to come across. And I'm not just reaching out to you because I want you to know who I am. I want to also support you and see how I can help you in your career, or help you define something that you need to work on. So you want to become a resource to people in some way, or at least become an advocate for whatever you might be defining as what is important to you in that position or career choice that you have decided on. So I think what's important as well is to have the social media presence, because now that's huge. But once again, I just want to preface that it's important to also have that in-person interaction, and that we'll get into on the networking piece as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like anytime I can leave my desk to go talk to somebody face to face, I definitely try to make that happen. So how should young professionals identify the characteristics of their personal brand? So a lot of us are right out of college or very new to the industry. How should we identify characteristics and build our branding?
Yeah, I think, sorry, I didn't know Massiel was about to speak.
No.
I'll take it first, Massiel, on this one. So there's a few key things that I think are really helpful, and it's probably more helpful to also write these down as well. So since you're starting out in your career, you really need to find your purpose. What is your purpose? What are you trying to achieve? And I know starting out, I'm trying to think about me in my 20s, like what is my purpose is really hard to define. But ultimately, if you could impact the world in a way, what would you want it to be? Do you want to create change? Is there something that you want to see differently? Do you want to develop a technology? Like, what is it that you're striving towards? Or do you want to just be a great networking and salesperson? What is your purpose? Define that. What do you like, and what skill sets are your strengths, and put that into your purpose. The next is your values. What's important to you in the way that you live and work today? Using maybe the internships that you've done or growing up and working, and what did you like? What did you not like? What were your values? What did you, working in those organizations or those companies, even if it was that you were, a waitress or a waiter or whatever it might have been, what did you like and not like? And what did you value about the people there that were successful? And try to start aligning that with what you think your values are. And that could also be, if you're, like your religious values or whatever you might think that you want to align yourself with are important. So you want to define your values. The next is brand clarity. So what I mean by brand clarity is authenticity. And we kind of talked about this in the beginning. You want, one thing Massiel will definitely align and back me up on this one is like authenticity is the number one thing, because what we see a lot is people want to rise to stardom very fast, and they lose who they are while doing that. It's very, very important to be yourself, and whatever your self image might be, it's important to own that. So I think brand clarity is really being authentic. The next, I kind of talked about it earlier, but it's your strengths. What are your natural abilities? What are you naturally good at? I'll give a little example. So I went and met with a group of ladies, and they were all engineers, very, very engineered, where they're very introverted. And as you can tell, I talk a lot, so I'm extroverted. So I'm just talking, and they looked at me and they said, "Oh my gosh, I wish I could just open up and talk like you." And they downgraded the importance of who they are. They are are amazing, incredible engineers that I wish I could create a product, but that's not my skill set. But if I sat there and just thought that I wanted to be like them, then I lose who I am. So it's very, very important to really rely on your natural abilities, because you have something that's great. And so put that into your brand identity. And then the two last ones are your energy, self-awareness of your mood. You want to make sure that whatever you're putting out into the world makes you happy, because what will end up happening is you'll start posting, or you'll start trying to create this image, and you realize that it doesn't align with your energy, with what makes you happy, and it just dies out because you really don't have fun doing it. So it's really important to define what brings you energy. And then lastly, it's your legacy. What do you want to leave behind? What do you want the world to know you as? There's a quote that I like, and it's like the reason for life is to define your gift and then give your gift away. So really try to think about what is it that you want to give out to the world, and put that into your personal brand. And those are just some defining points that I think are a really great starting point for those that are trying to figure out really who they want to be perceived, both in person, both interaction, but also on social media.
Great. Liz, do you have anything to add to that?
She covered all of it.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was perfect.
Yeah, I have a family member that tells me, some people may call this weird, but normal is just a cycle on the washing machine. So being unique is very important. So when we talked about professional identity, how can we make a brand that also reflects us, in our personal life, because a lot of us think that sometimes our personal life and our work life need to be separate, but I feel like there needs to be some sort of balance. How do you think we can best balance our personal and professional brands?
So I think the best way to do that is by still being your authentic self, keeping, your personal brand, but blending it in your professional career, and see how you could help others who are going through the same career as you and have them relate to you. So I'll give an example. My work back in the day was I was a field engineer. So that was my career, engineer, field, working in wireline. My personal life was my boyfriend at the time. We were, long distance. At the time, I didn't know if I wanted to have kids. I was always gone. I was by myself. And so what I did is I blended them. My personal life was that I was this, young girl out in the oil field with really no friends. I was always by myself. I would talk about my relationship and the fact that it sucked. I would always have to be gone for a month at a time. I would see all of my friends who had graduated with me, who were getting married, having kids, having this corporate life. And so I just blended both, but I stayed true to myself, and I opened up how I felt and how I was dealing with it, because a lot of people are going to go through that. My story could look very different, but there's people that are looking up to you or watching you, and then you could bring value. And then it was kind of, how do I professionalize it? Okay, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what my work is. I talked a little bit about the technology. This is what a oil field, field engineer does. And you kind of showcase your career, but then I would also blend in my life of if I would go on trips, because obviously when you work a month on, you get a week or two off. So I would show them the benefits of like, okay, I worked for a month and it sucked sometimes and it was long days, but hey, look, I went on vacation for 2 weeks. So for me, it was a nice way to just show everyone that you could blend it together. But there is a fine line of when you're oversharing of your personal life, when people are really just there for the corporate side, or when you're just so corporate and it's all about technology and about your career that people lose out a little bit of your personal life. So I think it's a good balance because people want a little bit of both.
I agree. Jamie, do you have anything to add?
What I would add is my personal life really was my work too. So what I mean by that is I was always a sales professional. So I always had to build a relationship with somebody. And the best way to do that is to talk about your personal life. And so I really related with all my customers because we would talk about what we were going through. Even if I was the only woman in the room or the only woman in the field, I loved, I was one of those people that loved to be outside, loved to work out, hunt, fish, do a lot of the things that the guys did like to do. So for me, it really I felt like I was on a deer lease when I was out with drill bits, dropping them off on location. So it didn't really feel that foreign to me, but I know that that's not the same for everyone. But what I always tell people is find something that you have in common, because you would be surprised. You have something in common with pretty much almost everyone. And that is where you can really open up about your personal life if you feel that you want to, because I know there's a lot of people that also don't like to. And so I don't want you to feel pressured that you have to be that person, but it's important to find what you like in your personal life that also you can find at work, because at the end of the day, that will make your work life more enjoyable.
Oh, great. Thank you. I definitely can relate to that one. So earlier you were talking about when you're networking or getting that face-to-face. So as young professionals, when networking or attending an event or a conference, how do we create that elevator pitch for what we do, and how do we be our own advocate for that?
So I think the best thing is literally YouTube elevator pitch ideas, and because it's really good when you see someone else do it versus someone telling you. But one thing that Jamie and I struggled before looking into elevator pitches, which we've done now in our careers, is we just talk a lot. And so sometimes you meet someone and you think that you just bombarding them with how great you are and who you are, and that's going to look good. It's not. So the shorter, the more compact. If you're a big talker like us, you really need to hone in on what you're going to say. So it's really, you need to practice in front of a mirror. I'm not kidding. Elevator pitches, practice before you head out to a big meeting, especially when you already know who's going. You have to have a list of people that you want to impress, right? And it should be like a minute or less. And it should be, your name, who you are, some past experiences that are very concise, that highlight your career, that highlight some positions that you've done. You've managed X, this. And at the end, what you should leave it open with is giving them a little hint of what you want to do next or what matters to Jamie. Because at the end of the day, after that elevator pitch is, Jamie mentioned she wanted to go in HR and she wants to do a career in HR, or her next step is she wants to lead people or something along those lines. Because that's what you want at the end of the elevator pitch, is that they remember your name, maybe a few background of, okay, she did this, that was very highlighted, and what does she want to do next? Now leave, and what did she say? She mentioned 50 different things, and she was all over the place, and that doesn't look good on their receiving end. So it has to be very precise and concise.
I love what Massiel said. The only thing I would add is tape yourself. So when I first started at Schlumberger, we did this elevator pitch thing, and you would literally, they have a video camera, you would open a door, you would walk through the door, somebody would greet you, they would have like a mock person. You shake their hand and you have 30 seconds to say something. And if you talk too long, you'd have to start all over again. So you'd have to walk into the door and do it all over again. And they videoed you. And so then you got to watch the video, which was cringeworthy. So I think videoing yourself is really helpful because you'll catch some of your repeating. Maybe if you keep repeating yourself, or you're not sounding like how you want to.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think that's some really great advice. I'm definitely one of those that I can talk forever. So keeping it short is nice, short and sweet. So as a young professional, we see, and especially in the time that we're in, there's a bit of a kind of like a generation gap, where we see a lot more young people come in, but there's not really a lot of people that have been in the industry for quite a bit. When we're looking for a mentor, or if we have a student that says, hey, I want some advice as a young professional, I've had students come up to me. Does a mentorship play a role in establishing your brand? And if so, what should we look into, like for a mentor or a mentee?
Mm-hmm. So I would say the mentors that I've had don't play any role into my personal brand at all. Mentors for me have been people who have given me advice on what to do in a certain situation, how to handle my career, maybe advice on mistakes that they've done in their careers, etc. But when it comes to my personal brand, it's really just about you and what's inside and what you wanna. I don't think anyone should. I mean, you can take advice from other people, but at the end of the day, it has to be true to you. And if they can give you advice, because Jamie and I have had this in the past where, and you're right about the generational gap. We get a lot of advice from people we care about and that could be mentors or that we look up to, but they didn't grow up in the same era that we did. They didn't have social media. They don't understand necessarily maybe what we're trying to go through. And so sometimes we receive advice, but we kind of put it on the back burner and go, I'm not going to take it because I think there's that generational gap. But sometimes they have amazing advice that hasn't changed, in the sense that maybe back then the politics in corporate and advice on having a child and how to, put them in daycare, how to get a nanny, or how to get help, or how they balance their work, that's still very relevant. And so mentors have been crucial to both Jamie's and I's career. I think everybody needs one. How do you find one? That's always the golden question. I think what works best is when it's just a genuine connection with somebody that you look up to, and then after it just develops slowly. It's not, hey, Liana, I want you as my mentor, and that's it. It needs to be a two-way street. It needs to be, hey, let's connect for coffee, and then we kind of share a little bit, and then you will get a sense of, okay, this is a good person that matches my energy. This is someone I respect. This is someone I would value, mentorship from. And it kind of just happens, and there's really no label. I don't think any of my mentors know that they're my mentors. They don't know that. It's just someone that you kind of always go back to, and you build that relationship with them, and they learn from you, and you learn from them.
And what I'd add, because Massiel hit it right on the head on all of that, and her and I are very similar in this, is that you can also have mentors in different phases. So a mentor like Massiel is my mentor sometimes, and we're the same age, and like so it's not like it always has to be somebody that's older or more established. And it's important that you have different people that you connect to, and it could be somebody that's not even in your industry as well. But it's always helpful if you do have a mentor in your industry, because then they also can become a sponsor as well for you, because those are two different things. But what's important, and Massiel did mention it, was that sometimes we've gotten advice from mentors. And if we took that advice and we actually followed through with it, we probably wouldn't be here today. Because there are some mentors that might not have thought a podcast had been a very smart idea. Because it was very scary back in 2019 when there wasn't this huge thing for podcasts. Now, it's like everybody has one, but we were really starting something that nobody else did. And when we went out and asked, and, sometimes your family member is your mentor. And if I would have listened to some of them, we would definitely not have been here. So the reason I'm saying this on this topic is because it's important to establish different ways of getting advice. And mentors are a great way to do that. But sometimes, like, I have some mentors that I speak only certain things with, because I know that they're really good at that. And if I need advice on that, I'm going to go to them, and then vice versa. But it's good to get a wide range of advice is really what I'm trying to say, because you don't want to just follow one person's track record or like what they're telling you, if maybe it doesn't align with what's going on today in the workplace, given just all the changes that have happened in the last 3 years.
Perfect, thank you. We did get a question in the chat asking if you can expand on a sponsor.
Yes, no, of course. So a sponsor is somebody who talks about you when you're not in the room. This is the person that is going to say, oh, there's an opportunity. Wow, Massiel would be really good for that. I'm going to make sure that I am promoting her when she is not around. And maybe you don't even know that this person is your sponsor. Sometimes it's somebody that maybe has followed what you've done within your job, or somebody who's followed you on social media, and they talk about you when nobody else is around. A sponsor is not a mentor, because usually a mentor is somebody you go to advice for. Although a sponsor and a mentor can be the same thing, most of the time a sponsor is different. This is just the person that basically promotes you in a room when you're not there.
Great. That's a very good distinction. I like that. Then we also had another question from our audience, but we may have already covered it, is how do we find a professional mentor?
I don't know if there's like a professional mentor. Maybe a professional coach is maybe what I'm thinking. And I think a lot of people at a certain point in their career, they do get professional help from an outside kind of third-party view of their career that they can get advice from that is paid. And that's usually why I'm thinking professional. Other than that, if it's not that route and you're just a professional mentor, is just anyone who has a track record within their industry, they've been there for 15, 20, 30 years, or even 5 years, that is ahead of you, that can give you professional advice and be a mentor and kind of share. But I think by reading the question, it's more of like a coach, and it's usually paid, and it's usually someone who handles people with different careers and can help you advise on things that you need to work on. Because at the end of the day, it's where you kind of share and be very vulnerable with certain aspects that you're doing, and they're going to help you fix what you need in order to keep advancing.
And if it's the latter, where you're asking like, okay, I'm graduating from college, I want a job, I need a mentor, how do I find somebody that I can just get a relationship with in the industry? If that's your question, I'll tell you an example of what I did way back 10 years ago. So I went to LinkedIn, and this is where it's important, where Massiel was saying that that you both have to be engaged in this mentor relationship. It's not that you just reach out to somebody and they just give you all the advice. So what I did is that I researched some people. I really liked their background. I really liked what they said. I really liked who they were. I reached out and I stated like, hey, you have 20 years of experience doing X. I'm very interested in your work. I am a graduate from A&M University. I'm going to be a chemical engineer, and I'm really just trying to understand, you know, what should I do, or how can you support me, or not even how can you support me? Let me take that back. How can I learn from your experience? I would love to meet for you for coffee. Are you willing to meet, you know, at a local spot? And I just love to get to know you. That's it. Try that over and over again. If you don't get responses, look for somebody else. But you need to be aligned with that person as far as what you can find from them on social media, or maybe if you meet them at a networking event. But you should be able to make that first step. But when you do that, you need to be self-aware of like who that person is. You need to have, like, you need to understand what they've done. You don't just walk in and then say, oh, okay, yeah, so what do you do? Yeah, so I need your help. And that's where it rubs off.
You did a little bit of research.
Yeah.
And most people, believe it or not, are very willing to meet with you. I think there's always that people are scared to ask for help or to even say, hey, do you want to go for coffee? The majority of people feel flattered and are like, sure, I'll go to coffee and talk about myself and about my career and how I can help you. People love that. So don't be afraid to reach out to people.
Oh, great advice. Thank you. So you mentioned LinkedIn a little bit. So LinkedIn serves as a professional social media tool. So what are some do's and don'ts to utilize it to its full potential?
So yeah, go ahead, Jamie.
I was just going to say, don't get emotional and just post something. So one of the don'ts, and I'll let Massiel can take over after this, but like, because she's done a lot more on social media than, I mean, on LinkedIn, as far as growing her brand. But one of the don'ts is really, and I have found myself doing this before too, where I see something and I like don't align with it. And I really want to like give my opinion. And it's just like everything else in life. Like you really don't want to give your opinion on a social media network that's professional, even if you might not be aligned with what that person might be sharing. And it mainly comes from a place that I'm just a very big energy advocate. So when it comes to like things that I just like are cringeworthy for me, I really want to say something. And it's important because as you build your brand and as you build who you want to be perceived as, you also don't want to be seen as this person that, you know, gives their opinion on everything on LinkedIn and have that be good or bad. So it's important when you do write something that you have to know that everybody else is going to be able to see it. And so have that be, if you're posting something on your page or if you're commenting on somebody else's page, you just really need to be self-aware that, you know, your employer is going to see it, you know, your boss is going to see it. So you want to make sure that you own whatever you're going to be stating. And so that would be my biggest piece of advice when it comes to posting on LinkedIn.
Great advice. It made me remind myself of so many things that I did in the beginning that I should never do again. But yeah, I'll give two short stories to Jamie's point is, whatever you put out into the world, just know it's going out to the world and you cannot take it back. And so very early on in my, life and career, when I was posting, I posted a video of myself dancing in coveralls beside a car, the Kiki challenge by Drake. I don't know if anybody remembers, like 6-7 years ago. And of course, violated every HSC, rule in the book, in the oil field of walking beside a car. I got in and out of the car anyways. And I posted it. And within literally 20 seconds, I felt deep down that was a mistake. And I was like, oh, you know what? Never mind. And I deleted it. And I was like, I'm good. Deleted it. Guess what? In 20 seconds, somebody downloaded that video and posted it on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, all over the world. And within a few hours, that video had millions of views. And my company was looking, who is this person? Because they couldn't see very well. And so just be very aware of whatever you post because, I was young and stupid and I would never do that again. And so just be very calculated with what you're posting. It's professional, especially with LinkedIn. Your employer is watching this, your boss, etc. And so it's very important that whatever you craft has to be very professional and that you are proud to put that out into the world, no matter who screenshots it, no matter, it's positive. To Jamie's point on commenting, that is something that's very important because it's very easy for you to see a post or even someone criticize your post, which has happened, and I would fight back on the comments. and try to defend myself of whatever it is, even though I, think that I was right because they're commenting about females in the oil field and how they shouldn't be there. And I would get aggressive and get angry. One day my boss sent me a screenshot and said, like, I know this is social media, you can do whatever you want, but when you fight back with people, even though you're right, it doesn't look good. And that really reminded me, like, everybody's watching, even reading your comments. So just be very aware of that.
That's something great, very, very great to be mindful of. So I know you two met on Instagram. So when we talked about LinkedIn, what about other social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter? Should we be utilizing those in our professional lives as well, or should we just keep it to LinkedIn?
I think it depends what you're going after. What is your mission? It really depends, like, what do you want out of whatever you're doing, whatever you're posting? Is it you really want to grow an audience, etc.? If so, be on TikTok. Where it's a huge audience. If you want something that's valuable content, you want to talk about the industry, really what's nice is you could make a content of whatever it is that you want to publish and put it everywhere. At the end of the day, it's whatever sticks, whatever does well. There's different audiences for different things. I would say if you're just looking at professionally growing your personal brand, this is career driven promotions, you want to network with the right people, create sales, etc., LinkedIn is where you want to be.
And I really like this question because Massiel and I both have two totally different social media visions. So she started out very early posting about her life, and that is what she wanted. She wanted people to relate to her on what her life was in the field, what she was going through. It was her outlet. And so for her, that was important to be on multiple platforms, have that be YouTube, whatever it might be, because that way she can get more people to understand what's going on. She can get more women involved to know that this is an opportunity for them to be in the oil field, which is why she's been so successful at that. For me, I have always just been LinkedIn, and then my Instagram was mainly just my personal account. I didn't really post much about work or anything. But I was, my LinkedIn was mainly what I posted when it came professionally on work or what I was doing. So it's important, and Massiel mentioned it, it's important to really see, and this goes back to your legacy and what you want to do and what you want to be perceived as. And if you want to be I want to be the person that's the go-to for how to make up drilling tools, well, then it'd probably be great for you to start a TikTok and getting approval for you to go in to wherever you're going to start working and do that and show how you make up tools and post that. So it depends on what you want your social media to be. And then if that's something where you want a lot of people to follow you and you want to be known as that person, doing, teaching people how to do sales or teaching people how to, run wireline or whatever it might be in the field, that means that you need to do a TikTok, you need to do an Instagram, you need to be on LinkedIn. So the other social media platforms really are dependent on kind of what you want your personal brand to be recognized as.
Great. We do have an audience question. We actually have a couple. The first one is, do you think that we need to be careful about posts, even on private personal accounts where it's just family and close friends?
Yes, the answer is yes. I think we've seen it in the public eye with politics, with influencers, etc. They will go back 10, 15 years if they have to hunt you down about one thing that you said and cancel you. And so do we agree with it or not? Because, people evolve, you change, and should you, but it's how society is. And if they want to find something and it's out there, I would be just more cautious in a professional setting. Yeah.
And to that point, like I said before, my Instagram was just a personal account. And I remember I had posted something where it was my comment on something political. And I got people writing me immediately, and they were like, this doesn't align with X, Y, and Z. And this was a few years ago. And it really made me think wow, that's not how I perceived what I said, but that's how you're perceiving what I wrote. And that's not what I meant. And so after that, I was never again am I ever gonna, and it was just a few words that I just commented on. And that goes back to you need to really be aware of what you're stating and who's reading it. And whatever you want to put out, you need to be able to own it. So like if somebody takes a screenshot of it and they show your boss, you need to be like, yep. And that is how I want to be perceived, because that could potentially happen. So it's really important. And I think when we're young, we don't really notice that, because this all happened when, I was in my early 20s. I feel like sometimes like it's like your brain doesn't really recognize that how other people might perceive what you're saying. And you got to go through some learnings to understand like, hey, I shouldn't comment like that, or I shouldn't talk like that. So because you're here listening to what Massiel and I and the advice we're giving today, I would say this is a really big piece of advice, is to really be cognizant of how you are responding and what you are posting. Because at the end of the day, somebody can screenshot it and save it.
Yeah, great. We do have one more audience question. What can you post on LinkedIn as a recent graduate that will show your values and career inspirations? Are summaries and comments on books you read count as a way to show your brand?
It does count, because then you're going to have people who have read that book or who are big into reading who will say, oh, I really liked that she did a summary. And then, so now you have this new niche of people that love reading books. It's crazy when you think sometimes that only you do a certain thing. There's an audience for literally everything. Even if it's reviewing food and then kind of tying it to, for example, you travel for work and you're talking about your career on LinkedIn, but then now you review foods everywhere you go on your work visits. And now people who are foodies, but also like are in the oil field industry, are going to follow you because they like both. So really, I think you just need to look into something that you are passionate about and that you like, and see how it can be valuable to other people. At the end of the day, whatever you're posting needs to bring value to the person who's reading it. So yes, as a young professional, that's a great way to do it. And I will try to put it on the chat, but there's a young guy from Nigeria who's excellent at this. He's a young grad. I think he's been in the industry for 1.5 years, and his content is just exceptional. And it's about, how to get an interview to work in the oil field, and he writes everything down. How do you prepare to go out to the rig? Writes things down with a picture of him on the rig. Like, it's just such valuable content. It's very professional, but it really, he's building an amazing personal brand at such a young age, and it's all about bringing value to the reader tied into oil field.
And if it's the same person I'm thinking of, he also likes fashion. So he does like really great posts around fashion, and it's just really neat to see his personal side. That's a great way to connect your personal side with your professional. Everybody wants to know, what should I wear to the office, right? So I think that's another great way to also show your personal brand.
Awesome, thank you. What a great question. So talking about some goals, so what are some of the best ways to accomplish short-term and long-term goals? And how do you do that when you have a busy mentor, or, the workload sometimes gets really heavy?
So you're saying, how do you define your own personal goals, or can you elaborate?
Yeah, some best ways to do short-term and long-term goals, whether it be professional or personal. Like for me, I know we have these meetings with our director or whoever you direct to about, you have like the 6 months goals, like I want to do this within 6 months and I want to do this within a year. How do we go about accomplishing those when either your workload is really high or when you have a busy mentor?
Yeah, I would say that small, simple task on a daily basis. So the way to tackle a really big goal is to break it up into, what do I need to do in order to achieve that goal? And then break up time spans and even block out time in your calendar, 30 minutes to work on this project that's due in 3 weeks or whatever it might be. And you break it up into pieces. That way it basically boils it down to very small goals each day. And then just checking that off, like, hey, yep, I called that person so I can get that information that's needed. And checking that off is like a way to make you feel accomplished, and it keeps you going. When you just look at a really big goal and you just wonder, how the heck am I ever going to achieve this? It makes you procrastinate because you don't define how I'm actually going to reach it. So some of the things that Massiel and I had to really learn, because not only do we work at Schlumberger and Baker Hughes on our day job, but we also do flipping the barrel. And there's a lot that goes into that. And that's usually at night. And so when you're trying to balance and define, how am I going to reach two goals? Because I'm doing two things. You really have to be very time cognizant and really break it up into pieces. And when you do, you would be amazed by how much you get done if you focus on it on that one time slot. And sometimes you can get so much done in just 15 minutes. And so if you break them up into slots and then define what you're going to do, stay focused, put your phone away, don't get distracted. You will be amazed by like how quickly you can reach that goal. And that would be like my number one advice.
Yeah, same as what Jamie said, have a list of tasks. That really helps. But at the end of the day is looking inward and being accountable, because I know so many people woulda, shoulda, coulda, 2022, that was my goal, 2021, that was my goal. We're humans. It's hard for us to zone in on one thing and be very focused. But at the end of the day, it's what's needed. And so you need that top priority list of things that need to get done, and distractions. We live in a world, text message coming on, your phone coming off. It's so easy. It happens to me all the time too, where I'm like, oh my gosh, I went to this rabbit hole and I literally wasted an hour of my time when I could have advanced in this project. I could have, edited, blah, blah, blah. And so it's really, there's a lot of excuses, and we all tend to have that. And so it's really just looking inward and saying, if this is really a goal that I really want, and I really want this promotion in 6 months and my paper's due or whatever, it's you have to own it and you have to take accountability.
Right. I feel like during those times, noise canceling headphones are my best friend. So kind of transitioning a little bit, in your career, what are some of the defining moments that have shaped you into the professional you are today, and why?
I can't think of this one.
And a loaded question.
Okay, repeat it so we can digest
Okay.
it.
Yeah. So what are some of the defining moments that shaped you into the professional you are today?
I would say was when I left the field and went into an office role. I was really trying to blend in and change who I was to become more corporate versus, 5.5 years in the field. You don't have to dress like that. You don't talk the same way in the field as you do in the office. So it was a lot of trying to change who I was in order to fit into the corporate world. And when I was in the field and I would look at managers or people in the office, I would say, I never want to be like them. I don't even want to have a career like them. They all look depressed and miserable, and heck no. And so when it was my turn, there was a lot of me trying to change who I was to fit in, and okay, now I got to progress my career, so I have to be like them. And the first success that I had was when I posted something. We were trying to sell these trucks in the role that they gave me, and I didn't know where else to sell them. I didn't have contacts of who wanted to buy wireline trucks, and I posted it on Facebook. Just my instinct of like, how do you sell something at home? Well, I post my fridge on Facebook. I'm going to post these trucks on Facebook. No one had done that, obviously. Like, it probably wasn't allowed, and I got in trouble over it. But it was just me trying to like, okay, this is what I would do, but this isn't corporate, but whatever. Like, I'm now a salesperson. This is how I know how to sell online. And yes, I got in trouble, but then I got a buyer for like $1.3 million off that Facebook post. And then they were like, ooh, wait, this is weird. This new generation is doing things very weirdly that we don't agree with, because they're all a lot older. But for once they realized, like, maybe we should just let her do her thing and it'll be successful. And that was a very defining moment where I was like, this is how I'm going to do it. And, like, I think it's going to be good. And you take a risk. Maybe that post would have done horrible and I would have gotten in trouble. And maybe, they would have been like, never post again in your life. But because of me just trusting in myself that this is going to be successful, I think I was able to kind of slowly move my career in the sense that I was now pushing the boundaries of this new generation of this is how we do things. And so that was a huge defining moment, because after that, they slowly started trusting me more and more of what I wanted to post, which was work related, let's say.
Yeah. I always love that story when she says it. So I would say for me, it was really when I started at Schlumberger, and I First of all, I had no engineering experience at all. I was a marketing business communications major. And when they hired me, I had to do a 3-month engineering course on drill bits. And I had to do an elevator pitch, that's where I was talking about where they actually videoed us. And there was so much that I was thrown into. And then I was told that if I fail any test, I get fired, so I don't keep my job. And I did not know that when I got selected to even take the role. And so it was a very defining moment for me because it really made me push my boundaries. And before, I was one of those girls that really thought, like, I suck at math, I'll never get it. When they talked about bit hydraulics, I thought they were talking about hydraulics on a car. I had no idea. And I really, I put my head down, I learned, I studied, and I was one of the 2 that passed the entire course out of 33. And that was really where I proved to myself, like, okay, I can do this. Like, I just did it. And then the next step was to work in the field. But really what ended up happening was, because I defined that and because I overcame what was a big challenge for me, I felt like I could do anything at that point. And I was only like about 21, 22. And then Schlumberger gave me the opportunity to run a small bit roller cone line, which really defined my personal brand at that moment, because I had to pitch to upper management on the revenue behind it and why we should do it. I was 22 years old. Like, why did they give me this opportunity? Because I had a sponsor and he thought that I would be the right person to talk about it. And how did I get that sponsor? Well, that was the guy that hired me, who saw my potential because I overcame a big challenge. He threw me into that course. I passed it. And so they were like, I'm going to try something else. I'm going to see if she can do this. And so when I became that person that was like, okay, I know if I give her a task, she's going to complete it, that became my personal brand. And that led to my career progression, which is I left Schlumberger, I went to another company, I got a bigger role to now I'm at Baker Hughes in a quite large role as global account leader. So, and all of that is because every step I was taking a challenge that I had never done before, and I figured it out. And that is what's important for me and my personal brand and who I wanted to become. And that's just historically kind of what I've done throughout my life, even from the beginning. So, and that too is a great example of what's, different between everybody, Massiel's approach and my approach. And so we're all different. And I think that that's important when you're looking at your career and what you want to be defined as. This kind of ropes back into brand. What do you want to be known as when somebody's not in the room? Because that will be what your how your career progression happens. Because you become that go-to person, you become that technical person, you become that think outside the box person like Massiel. Hey, I'm going to post it on Facebook. Nobody else has done it. Why not? And so that is how you define your personal brand, that then of course turns into you and your success within your career.
Some great advice. I love the Facebook story. As a true millennial, I mean, I would probably buy that. So as you both progress in your careers and you grow the podcast, how have you been able to create a work-life balance? Like you said, some of those goals you have double because you're basically running two different sides of your professional life. How do you create that work-life balance, and how has that evolved throughout your career?
So there's no balance. I think we're the first to tell you that. We talk about being moms all the time and how difficult that part is, because we're not the perfect moms, and we don't go to the park all day and cook cookies and but you just have to be okay with that. And not everybody wants to do that. And I think we've just realized that, we want to be working moms, and that's okay. Even though there's still always that mom guilt and the mom shame of like other moms who are like, you work a lot. When do you have time to spend with your child, etc. But we always say that I think at the end of the day, your children will be very proud of you if you're happy with what you do. And if you're happy in your career, in your life, and with your own goals, I think it inspires them that their moms or parents or dads are going after what they want in life. And so we always try to tell ourselves that, because we do have a very busy schedule. Like you said, we have a full-time job that's very demanding. And then we just have this big passion for flipping the barrel. And which is why at the end of, that lame quote that says like, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life or whatever. Like, I hated it, but it's true. It doesn't feel like work because we just love what we do with Flipping the Barrel. So even though we do work at night, you know, as soon as we put our daughters to bed, we get on, you know, the computer and we work on Flipping the Barrel every evening and then on weekends. And so we love it and that's why we do it, but there's really no balance because just time, you have such a small amount of time and it's dedicated to all of that family, Flipping the Barrel, and our work, plus our personal, you know, we like fitness, we like working out, like travel, etc. And so I just think you just have to make it fit, but not everything is going to be perfect. There's going to be days where you are the worst mom because you didn't even have time to wake her up in bed or put her to bed because you were so busy. Or there's times where maybe work will take a little bit of a backseat because you wanted to spend time with your daughter, and so you took half a day, and maybe, you know, it's like it's I don't know how to explain it, but it's never is it perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's exactly how I feel as well. Massiel and I are very aligned on this, and you know, to what she said, you know, it's a take and give, because there's, like she had mentioned, there's some days where it's more work, some days where it's more family. So there's really no like perfect formula to make it all, you know, feel great every day. And there always is, and I don't think the guilty part will ever go away, because it does feel, I think that's just a natural thing for moms in general. But the way to really overcome that is, as I always say, like it's quality over quantity. So when I am with her, I really, really am with her. I put my phone away, I spend time with her. And I think that I personally believe she enjoys that more than, you know, we go to the park and everybody's on their cell phone. So really, are they really paying attention to their children if they're on their phone all day? So, you know, it really is about taking those moments and making those experiences with your family. And then when it comes to work, you know, and also with Flipping the Barrel, Massiel and I have to manage both of our schedules when it comes to everything else that we do with Flipping the Barrel. So it's a lot about communication. So the biggest thing I can say in any relationship, have that be, you know, work relationship, partner, or, you know, business, is just communication, and talking about everything and talking through everything, and making sure that both people are aware of what's going on in both your professional and personal life, to make sure that you make and allocate the time that's needed to be successful in your career and maybe whatever endeavors that you have.
Great. I always reference my mom when she's like, it's organized chaos. And I'm like, yeah, okay. All right. So if you could go back and change anything on your career journey, what would it be and why? Or would you change it at all?
You know, this is a very good question. And it doesn't only apply to your career, but life in general. I think we rush through everything in life. And when you're like older, you're like, gosh, I wish I could go back to university. I wish I could go back to those days where all I did was study, or, you know, or even go back to the field and kind of enjoy a little bit more of every season in life. I think we all rush through life. And that's what I try to tell myself now, is just enjoy this. You're going to wish you come back to this, like, less responsibility, because as you climb up the ladder, it's just more and more and more. And so I think we all rush through, I want to get a promotion right away when I graduate, or I want to graduate right now, I want to start making money right now. And you kind of rush through beautiful years of studying and going to university. Like, I wish I could go back. And then even through your careers, you're just always chasing the next thing, and you don't actually sit and appreciate just the role, your team, what your life looks like in that moment. And so I would say I wish I could just slow down a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I align on that completely. Yeah, just really rushing through life, but also, you know, for instance, my role that I'm in today was a role when I was at Schlumberger. I remember looking at the global account leaders and being like, oh my God, like one day I want to be that person. I want to be him or her. And then now it's like, I'm in a role that's global. That is what I had wanted. And then it's like, wow, what happened to those last 10 years? Like, what were they even doing? Like, you just like, and then you're not even, it's not, I love my role. I'm not saying I'm not happy, but it's like, you're in it, and it's not like every next step is going to make you think any differently, or not, it will make you think differently, but I mean, of yourself. Like, it's not like, okay, if I get this promotion, everything's going to be aligned, I'm going to be great. Like, that's not how life goes. And so that's why it's important for what Massiel was saying, is to like live in the moment. And if I could go back and do anything, it would be live in each one of those moments more, and just like take it in, and know that, hey, it's gonna come at some point, but let's be great at what I'm doing today and not worry about, you know, when's my next promotion? It's been 2 years. Why have I not moved on? You know, I think that we get really caught up in that. And I would, you know, everybody listening, I would really say, like, be thankful for where you're at, be thankful for that next step, because that next step is, you know, you dreamed of that next step. And so when you're there, just live in that moment.
Okay, great. We have some audience questions. Just for the audience, if you do have a question, please put it in the Q&A and we'll go through those as they come up. So one of the questions is there a way to build our confidence at networking events? And this is coming from a shy person.
Yeah, honestly, it's to literally just go and talk to people. I know you're shy. I understand that you're like, oh, but that's like the hardest thing for me. You know, even maybe have something pre-planned of like, okay, this is what I'm going to talk about, whatever makes you feel more comfortable. But what I did, this is something that I learned like really early on, and I learned it when I was in school and I was in a presentation class, was everybody in there like puts on pants the same way, wears their shirt the same way. They all thought about what are they going to wear to this event. They all thought about, you know, who is going to be there. Your mindset and what you're thinking about is no different than anybody else in that room. Nobody else is like, oh, I feel so great, I can talk to everybody and all these conversations are wonderful. I mean, they might be thinking that, but you are no different. And so if you go in there just knowing that, hey, I'm no different than anybody else in this room, I deserve to be here, I deserve to meet these people, I'm going to go and introduce myself. And that's kind of how I overcame that. Because there's a lot of times where you walk into a room and you're just like, oh my God, I don't know anybody here. Like, I'm just going to go stand over here and get a drink and just be like, oh, hi. Yeah. Like, no, like you deserve to be there. Go meet somebody, you know, hi, I'm Jamie. And, what brought you here today? What are you doing? Like, how long have you been here? Like, what's your role? What company, or if you know what companies everybody works for, like, what do you like about working here? This is such a great event. You know, how hard was it to develop this? Or, you know, just come with questions, but just what I ask for you to just in your mind, just know everybody in there once was 20 years old, once was 21 years old, once was in your spot, everything. So just know you are not alone. And that's like my main thing. It's like, you're not alone.
And the only thing I would add is we have a lot of this stuff that scares us in our head of they're thinking this, everyone's thinking about themselves. Everyone's stressing out about themselves. And so no one's paying attention to you. So it's okay. Don't worry. You've got this.
Yeah, that's great. And I think for me, I don't have that issue. I'm a very extroverted person, but I will go find the one in the corner and I will like make myself talk to them. So
I love that.
On the flip side, I think we have another audience question. Who do you go to at your company to seek permission for post or public presentations? And are there any specific teams for that?
So when we initially started the podcast, Jamie did go to her company and let them know about the podcast, etc. And she got approval from, legal department and HR and even the CEO, because it was a medium-sized company. If you work for a big global corporation, there's so many layers, there's so many people, it's really hard to pinpoint. And so we just started it. I didn't ask for permission. It was, again, a risk of worst case, I get fired. But at the end of the day, I know that what we're doing is very positive. And so you kind of just have to trust your instincts that whatever you are posting, or if you are speaking on their behalf, it's positive and it's something that they would approve. Usually if you are going to represent them in a panel, etc., you're going to say like Jamie at Baker Hughes and I'm speaking for Baker Hughes, then yeah, you need to talk to the communications folks at your team. There's a whole communications line. For example, when we interview CEOs or VPs in companies, we deal with them. So they review the post, they review the podcast, they review the episodes, etc., because they have a specific brand that, voice or whatever the company needs to follow. And they're the ones who give us a stamp of approvals. So if there's anything specific that you're looking, I would go to the communications VP or communications managers within your organization, because they're the ones who handle LinkedIn, they're the ones who handle social media, etc.
Jamie, do you have anything to add?
No, that's exactly right. That's the same with all of the companies I worked with. Except for at the mid-sized company I asked legal, that was at Next Tier. I knew the legal team, so that's why I felt comfortable asking them. But going to comms or even marketing, you can do that as well.
Yeah, I think we have about almost the same exact process here at Transocean. Let's see, I think we have one more audience question. You mentioned something about knowing your natural strengths. As a natural introvert, how do you navigate in an extrovert industry like oil and gas?
There's a lot of introverts in oil and gas as well. I would say that, what you're seeing today is two extroverts, but there's a lot of introverts. You have to know or realize that, majority or a lot of people are engineers, and not saying that engineers or geologists are all introverted, but it does take a different mindset or a different mind, a different way of thinking when you are really great at not one thing, but in an engineering role. And you see, and I'm not saying anything that people don't already know, this is pretty common. So you have to realize there's a lot of people like you. And so I don't want you to think that like everybody in oil and gas is extroverted, but at the end of the day, it's really just defining, if you don't know what your strengths are because you're like, well, I'm introverted, I don't know what I'm good at. I'd start with just asking people that know you, what do you see me as? What do you think? What do you see when you look at my work, or when we're talking or when we're together, like what am I good at? And it could be just as much as like, you're a great person, you're a great listener. You're great at, figuring out things and solving problems. So I would go to, the people that know you first, if you're struggling with what your strengths are. I don't know if that was the question though. So I'm just kind of, Massiel, do you have anything to add?
No, I think you answered it. It's very similar to the confidence piece of how to just put yourself out there.
All right, thank you. We're gonna last couple of questions here before we wrap up. Flipping the Barrel has become such an influential industry voice. Why did you start the podcast, and where do you see it going?
So we started the podcast because we wanted to shine a positive light on the industry, mainly because of the external voices that Jamie and I would hear of like, oh, you work in oil and gas? Aren't you bad? Don't you pollute the world? You guys are destroying the planet. And so we wanted to kind of just have a spin on letting them know about the great careers that there are in oil and gas and energy. And just to shine a positive light at the end of the day, we power the world and we need oil and gas. And even though there is a transition, you're still going to need oil and gas for the transitions. And so we just wanted to make sure that there was a voice, because back then it was very small amount of podcasts that were out there. And so that was the number one. And then the number two, it was on career progression and questioning why there isn't enough women in corporate and why the numbers are so low. And so from the beginning, our aim was we want to interview CEOs and VP executives of how they got there and what it takes to get there, and what else can we do to help more women get to those places. Because as younger people going through our careers, we were looking up to the VPs and the executives, but they didn't talk, they didn't post anything, right? It's only recently that more and more CEOs are kind of posting on LinkedIn, and it's still very few. And so for this younger generation, we look up and we're like, okay, there's a picture of Jamie Elrod, the CEO, but like, who is she? And like, how did she get there? And does she have kids? And you have all these questions because of social media. People share so much in other industries, right? The CEO of Google, you can go find interviews on him, the CEO of Facebook, all these other businesses, but oil and gas was so secretive. And that's why we wanted to break down the stories of these people that at the end of the day, they're like us. They've had their fair share of challenges, mistakes, and overcome to get to where they are. And it's very inspiring. And that's why we wanted to showcase both. I don't know, Jamie, if you want to add.
No, I love that, Massiel. It really is about bringing the human element behind oil and gas, because we love this industry and we love everything that we do, and we really want people to recognize that. And so, the podcast was a free outlet, a way people can share that without having to pay for it, and a way to humanize, each company and what they're doing and why and the people behind it. And we're just really, really thankful that we were able to create it, as it was just on a whim where Massiel and I just decided to do it. And we're very thankful for everybody today and everybody who's following and listening and the change that it has created. Because I can tell you, when we started, we really had no goals. Besides the biggest goal, I guess, would be let's get the voice out there. We didn't know who would actually join the podcast or who would actually come and talk to us. So we're very thankful, and we're really excited for the future of it as it continues to grow. We're going to be doing more events to get people involved. We're also going to be doing a career portal to really help people and coming into the industry find really great jobs that align with the FTB mission, which is around culture and diversity and inclusivity. And we really just want to be that voice for the industry, because it's been great to us, and we want young grads like yourselves and those listening to have an opportunity like we did. And we want people to realize that there is a huge opportunity here, and don't pass it up, because we're going to need you in our industry to make an impact. And so any way we can share that, have that be through the podcast, the website, our YouTube, we're going to. And so, we're always looking for feedback and advice on what you think we should do next. But we're really excited about this career portal that we're going to be launching in the next few months. So stay tuned for that. As it grows, we're always coming up with new ideas on how to really raise up the energy voices.
That's great. I'm excited to see what comes. So as we wrap up, just some final words from you two, and if you can give a one piece of advice that you'd like everybody to know.
One piece of advice.
I know it's hard. There's so many.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go,
I have it because I tell my husband this all the time. And go and do it. Go and do it. I mean, please. And I really mean this, because people always ask, how did you do the podcast, or how did you do this, or how did you create something? You just do it. I promise you, you will research yourself to death. Do not research. Do not Google. If you have an idea, if you want to try something, just try it. Just try it. The worst thing that's going to happen is it doesn't work out. Okay, now we start something new. You have to not be afraid of failing, because I can promise you, we have failed many times. We continue to fail. And every time we fail, we change. We're like, okay, that didn't work. Let's try something else. And you become more successful by failing than you do by never failing. And I really, really mean that. Because if you always are great and everything's always wonderful, how are you ever going to learn? So you really, really need to just go and try whatever it is that you feel that you want to do. Even if that's I want to try to write this HR person to get a job there. Do it. Write them. What's going to happen? They're not going to email you back. Okay, write somebody else. That would be my biggest piece of advice, is to just not be scared to do what it is that you feel that you want to do or accomplish.
That was perfect. Yes. We hear that so often, that they want,
yes.
want, just do it. If not, nothing's ever going to change. You just have to get out of that comfort zone and do it. And to Jamie's point on that, my little piece was, if you were to, pass away tomorrow, are you happy with how you lived your life till today? If you hate your job and you hate what you're doing every single day, change. We only have one life at the end of the day. And so just make sure you are doing what you really want to do. And if that's quitting your job today and going after doing something big, do it. At the end of the day, you have to be happy and be very happy with what you're doing every single day. And so if right now the job that you're in isn't fitting, go find another company that's going to provide that career. If you've been waiting for this promotion for 5 years and they keep telling you that they're going to give it to you and they're not, switch. Own your career and own your life today. That's what I would say.
Perfect. Thank you. Just real quick, where can our audience find you on social media? Where can they listen to the podcast?
Yeah, so we're www.flippingthebarrel.com is where all the podcasts and everything are hosted, or they sit, but you can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Flipping the Barrel. Just look up Flipping the Barrel, Spotify, YouTube, podcast, Apple Podcast. We're on Instagram, Flipping the Barrel. We're on LinkedIn, Flipping the Barrel. And then if you want to find Massiel and I, it's just our names on LinkedIn. And if you even type that into Instagram, it'll come up. So we're pretty easy. If you just look for Flip in the Barrel, you'll find everything in any platform.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. I just want to take a quick moment to thank all of our sponsors: Cactus Drilling, Caterpillar, Derrick, HMP, Joliet, Neighbors, Noble, NOV, Patterson UTI, Precision Drilling, Transocean, Unit Drilling Company, and Valaris. Grace, do you have anything else?
Just want to thank Jamie and Maisie. I know that the two of you know this, but you've been very inspirational for me in my career and balancing new motherhood and a career in energy. And I know many people can say that. So thank you for being that voice for all of us and for participating in this today.
Thank you, Grace.
Much great.
Great. Thank you. This is being recorded. I think once we get done, it will be posted somewhere. And you can find all of our upcoming events on the IADC Young Professionals Committee LinkedIn page and also on the IADC website. So thank you both so much. We really appreciated all of your work and everything that you've done for the industry and all the advocating you do. It's definitely inspired me. And all right. Thank you guys. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.